Okay.
Okay, I believe we are underway. Yes, okay, we're good to go. Okay, without further ado, our guest speaker, Bob Turner, former congressional candidate that won that special election back in, what was that, 2012?
Yes.
2012. In the Anthony, 2011, the Anthony Weiner District, if you all recall. And that was first time since 1920, was it 2 or 4? 3? Boardwalk Empire time, okay?
Yeah.
So,
I was one of those votes for him.
and now he is our Queens Republican Party chairman. So without further ado, please give a warm welcome to
Thank you. Thanks for all being here on a nice lazy day, I guess for most. But this is an interesting group, and this is the first group that I spoke at politically in 2010, I guess, when I ran against Weiner. So nice to be welcome back. Okay. One of the topics that's certainly on everyone's mind today is what's going on in Washington. And I started writing some of this out, and then I got really carried away, so we don't have to be here all day. But after I speak, I'd be happy to do some Q&As, because we can't cover all that's going on. Now we're halfway through the first 100 days of the Trump administration, and we're waiting with bated breath for what's going to happen in restoring the government of the people to the people. We're off to a rocky start. But to get into the right frame of mind, I'd like to introduce the big picture. The Trump movement encompasses the ideals of stopping and reversing the growth of government. Beyond budget, personnel, and regulations, this movement seeks a profound cultural change in the way Washington does business. And it will mean everything from who sits on the Supreme Court to who sits in the ladies' rooms toilets. We got a wide cultural gap here that needs to be closed, and everything from government spending and defense, everything is on the line. To effect these changes, we Republicans and conservatives must maintain political power. And to hold political power, we need unity. I ask you, how is it that the Democrats can march in lockstep to get their goals and get 100% behind whatever the leadership is? It's always a bad idea to begin with. And we can't seem to get out of our own way. Well, the answer is just how we are structured. The Democrats are a top-down organization. They get their funding, every congressional seat, and the senators from a central source. And it's a small group of unions, SEIU, UAW, Teamsters, etc., and wealthy donors, the Soros and Spielman, and on and on. And they disperse it down the line, and they have, controlling the purse strings, they can primary you if you're difficult, or punish you in other ways. So they maintain very tight control. We don't have that. Almost every congressional district, they're on their own. They have to do their own funding. They get small amounts of money from a few organizations, the NRA. And when I say small, I'm talking $2,000, $5,000. Not enough to really swing elections. There are special elections where money will come in the millions, and those are all what they call IEs, independent expenditures, and PACs and that type of thing. But those are not that often. So the Republicans have to do their own fundraising, and it's onerous. The one thing that I would never miss about Congress was scrounging for money from people. It's very, very time consuming, but that's the nature of the beast right now. Now, we, as independents, have different constituencies and different groups that we have to contend with. Right now, we've heard a lot about the Freedom Caucus, which is largely what was the Tea Party, now renamed, rebranded, but it's essentially, there are about 30 members. It goes up a little bit depending on the issue on the Republican side. That group is very problematic for leadership. They held pretty tight in negotiating the replacement part of the health care bill to a point that it was unacceptable to too many others. And when the agreement was reached, they moved the goalpost. Because many of these people have no intention of doing anything other than repeal. And that's not going to work for most of the constituents. There are another undefined group. They sometimes call themselves the Thursday group or whatever, that are conservatives but moderates. Almost all of them are in swing seats. When Pelosi last held power in 2010, they ran through Obamacare. In 12, they lost, in 12th Congress, the election of 11, they lost 60 seats, a wipeout. We filled most of those seats, but they're in districts that we can win by 5-2%. And we have to pay strict attention to what's happening. Most of those Congress people, and there's, as I said, there's about 60, but it's actually less, are a little more sensitive to what is happening, and they are big on the replacement, as Trump is himself. We would have been far better off if he had never said anything. It was simply repeal, and then we will replace as needed. There might have been 5 acts. Maybe that's what will happen. But I don't even think repeal is going to be on the table till very late in the year, if at all. In the meantime, there are going to be some big consequences. Rates are going to skyrocket because the insurance companies are not getting subsidized now at 17. this was designed by the Democrats, that the president would be out of power by the time the more difficult parts of this legislation kicked in. So a lot of people are really going to feel the bite. Working class people, small business owners, these are going to feel the bite this time. You may have seen on television that some Republican leaders and Trump said, the Democrats own this disaster. I don't think so. I think what the voters are going to say, you guys were elected to fix it, you didn't fix it. My rates have just gone up 300 a month. Are you out of your mind? And there's going to be hell to pay next cycle. Well, the moderates got pushed so far by the caucus that they rebelled. And by the time it was over, I think Ryan was about 15 votes short. He needed 212, 214. He had about 200. And the Thursday group, or whatever they call, started splintering. And the caucus that had been in the Trump talk to, they kind of agreed that they moved the goalposts after that meeting, which set off a whole series of things, and it all tanked. I'd say we got some problems, and this is the first big issue. The reason that it was first, and the reason it's so important, is that the tax and income consequences of the health care bill, either corrected or how it was proposed to be corrected, have a great impact on the budget. Now, with this being as expensive as it will be, unrepealed, there will be budget consequences. That's going to back up into a whole series of things. I wish I had better news, but the Dems are fighting tooth and nail to derail, delay, and just screw up every appointment, every program that Trump and the Congress have been elected to put in place. Most of that, take a deep breath and be a little patient, we'll get through it. It's going to be ugly, but we'll get through it. And if we have to do things like to get Gorsuch on the bench, we'll do the what they call the nuclear option and stop filibuster and rewrite the Senate rules. So, not the end of the earth, but that may come back at another time to bite us. The bigger issues in the budget that are coming up, we need a defense increase of about 15%. Homeland Security, we got this wall that is going to be, I hear 40 or 50 billion, but that can be spread out over a number of years, and I think we'll find a way to live with that. And we have at least a Trump transportation promise of $1 trillion, but it's over 10 years. But even that is $100 billion a year, which is about as much as more than we will increase defense. But some of that is already built into the budget, so it's not all new money. We got that. We have decreases in a whole series of areas. The EPA is getting slashed about 30%. State Department aid and other things slashed about 30%. Education, unknown, but that's going to take a beating. From a federal point of view, and a lot of this will be pushed back to the states, and I think the feds will be rightly out of a lot of businesses that maybe they shouldn't have been in to begin with, but we have Health and Human Services. It's going to take a whack. Energy is going to take a good whack, and at least 30% back to the states. We got housing, Treasury, Interior, all will be shrunk and cut. The size of these cuts are not determined yet. The Dems are going to fight like hell. But before all these things can take place, each of these cabinet ministers, they're going to need staff, their own staff. Some of them have no staff. The top levels are appointed and have to be confirmed by the Senate. So now we're having weeks go by, and there's constant roadblocks and nonsense to delay and obfuscate the entire process. So before we can get to a lot of these things, which can be done administratively, a lot of the cuts, we need the right people to do it. I understand there are about 3,000 positions. Not all of them have to be confirmed, but that's a lot of people that are all sitting there right now. Not much is happening. So, the other issue, which will be the most contentious, will be our social spending. We overspend by $400 or $500 billion a year. During the fat years of Obama, we went up $1.5 trillion one year.
Oh, geez. And George W. On purpose.
Yes, well, we were able to get the stimulus done. We spend, of the overall federal budget, about $1 trillion on the social programs. There's nothing that we can do except cut. This is going to be, with the press, it's going to be in a feeding frenzy. Heartless maniacs who are going to send the women and children out into the cold. And you can see how that will play out. But some of this can be done administratively. That the SNAP program, you can no longer buy, well, I haven't even done it yet, alcohol or lottery tickets or tobacco.
Could you buy them now?
Yeah.
You're kidding, I didn't even know that.
Buy what?
Alcohol, beer,
Food stamps.
under food
No
stamps.
food stamp? Oh.
I
And,
didn't know
yeah,
that. Cigarettes.
cards,
I
yeah.
didn't know that.
And they can then resell.
It's going to be a balanced breakfast.
That's
They
right.
sell the cards over here, they're all trading cards.
Yes, that's true. It's
It's
an
the
absolute
most
mess.
disgusting thing I've
But-
ever seen.
That, as soon as that gets touched, the howls will
Well,
be.
people are
But
starving.
we gotta, well, you know what has to be done, so.
Yeah. It's very easy to do.
But here, we need a good staff people in health and human services, housing administration. Dr. Carson's ready to really let rip, and he knows what he's talking about. But he can't do this by himself, and the people that are there, a lot of the offices are just empty now, but a lot of at the next level are filled with the Obama appointees. So that's a problem. Now, laying on top of all this,